start looking in the mirror. Do I look good? I got my extra bands on. I got my other shoes on. We need more dogs.
And welcome back to the latest and greatest Shaving Points podcast. My name is Jayton May, joined as always by my co-host Quentin Crisco, and also joined by special guest Joe Summers as we break down the NFC West tonight, or AFC West tonight. I'm all over the place already.
AFC Best, AFC West. Let's get into it. But first, Joe, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself, where they can find your work, and all that good stuff?
First of all, appreciate you guys having me on. My name's Joe Summers. I'm born and raised in Kansas City. You can find my work on the Fansided Network, though I help run a Kansas City-specific website called KC Kingdom, just like Kansas City with Kingdom right after. And you can find my work there. Again, it's more than a pleasure to be on with you guys tonight, especially a couple Texas Tech fans, so you know how great Patty Mahomes is.
You're welcome.
Yeah, the time that the Cardinals and Cliff Kingsbury played KC, was it just like a bunch of signs that said like "Thank you, Cliff"?
I mean, well, more or less. And then you had your factions of people here in Kansas City that actually wanted, a different Cliff quarterback, wanted Baker Mayfield the year prior. There was some talk of trading Alex Smith in the first rounder to get up and get Baker. I'm glad we got the Cliff.
You got the better of the one. You got the better of the two.
Yeah, I'm glad we got him. But very appreciative of Kingsbury, and I think Kyler will be pretty solid this year. But we got the best one.
Yeah, I have high hopes for Kyler. We kind of talked about him last week a little bit, but I don't know. He's got to bounce back, right?
He's got to, I think.
I mean, you get Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, just by default.
They're beefing up that O-line. So, we'll talk about the Cardinals in a couple of weeks, but we just going to start it off with the Chiefs tonight?
Yes, sir. AFC West, starting off with the Kansas City Chiefs. And those of you watching on video, you can see our graphics up here showing the lineup, additions, subtractions, and draft class. If you are listening on the podcast, we'll describe what we're talking about as best we can. But we highly suggest you go check out the YouTube video, because these graphics are really nice to be able to talk through this stuff and listen through it with as well. But starting off with you, Jay, is there anything in this lineup that you see as kind of just stands out to you? Like, I don't want to say positive or negative, but that you're just like, that outside of Patrick Mahomes, because Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, so I got two things. It's never a bad day whenever you have probably a top 3 defensive player in the league while having a 2-time MVP, 3-time Super Bowl MVP, been to 6 straight AFC Championship games. But I am curious, looking at these additions, are we going to have a quarterback controversy here on our hands with Carson Wentz? I mean, people forget he basically won MVP.
Right before Mahomes started, too. Carson Wentz is interesting to me because I actually think that the role he could be for us, aside from the, random Chad Henne appearance against the Browns in the playoffs, is the short yardage quarterback sneak situation. Ever since Mahomes hurt his kneecap against the Broncos a few years ago, we are 20. Yeah, we don't run quarterback sneaks at all. And we're 25th, I believe is what it is. You have to check me on that. I believe it's 25th over the last 2 years in 3rd and 1 or 4th and 1 conversions. It's easily the most frustrating part of watching the Chiefs offense besides the drops last year. Carson Wentz is really good. He's a large dude. I think there could be a package that we run in the playoffs against the Bills or someone like that, where Carson Wentz finally does the quarterback sneak. So he's got a little dual threat. Like, sure, he's the backup, but I think we might have a package for him in the playoffs too.
Yeah. Now, I'm never a fan of taking the best player off the field for any reason, but I'm with you. In those scenarios, I mean, I don't really want to see him getting under center and getting in that dog pile either if I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan, so I get that. But so losing L'Jarius Sneed, how do we feel about this DB room?
So L'Jarius Sneed was our shadow corner last year, and it kind of let Trent McDuffie roam all over the field. He had 5 forced fumbles last year. His specialty was kind of being almost like a free safety is the wrong phrase for it, but he roamed while L'Jarius Sneed shadowed. My question is if they're going to have Trent McDuffie shadow this year, or if he's going to stay in kind of that hybrid role and someone like Jalen Watson steps up in shadow. That's the biggest question about the room. But honestly, at this point, say what you will about Brett Veach's inability to draft wide receiver aside from Rashee Rice, cornerback in the mid to late rounds, he's crushed. And so I believe in the room, even if on paper it doesn't look as good last year. And I think that our defensive line is going to get home enough that the secondary won't have to be elite to still have really good pass coverage numbers.
Yeah. So, Q, what about Karlaftis? Do you think he's making any steps forward?
Yeah, so I have some questions with this D line along like because Karlaftis, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but I feel like Karlaftis is a guy who's going to be like a really solid football player for a long time, but I'm not sure his ceiling is quite where you'd hope for some other edge rushers where, he's going to set a powerful edge. He's going to give some nice power rushes to you as a pass rusher, but he's never going to be that bendy guy. Is there a guy like a BJ Thompson or a Felix Anudike-Uzomah who is feeling like they might be able to break out and be that more speed rusher, that wide nine technique type guy, or is that kind of missing on this roster, you think?
I wouldn't say BJ. I'd say there's optimism for Felix. He had some nice plays in the playoffs, and ultimately defensive line rotation was a little bit too crowded for him last year. Minihue, whenever we get him back from the ACL tear, he's a guy that I'm excited about. Felix maybe, but otherwise, I think a lot of it just comes from not even necessarily having one person that can just get around really quickly, but just having constant pressure along the front forward. The Mike Dana 3-year contract extension, I think, was really big. He had 6.5 sacks, 5.5 of them were when Minihue was suspended last year. So when Minihue was out, Dana stepped up, almost a sack a game clip. You throw that on top of Karlaftis, Chris Jones, and the way that Steve Spagnuolo will throw him all over the defensive line, that it's almost like by the whole committee, we're going to get pressure on most plays as opposed to necessarily having one dominant pass rusher.
Yeah, and so that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought up Dana because he's a guy who I'm curious about because he kicks inside at times, right? He plays kind of a base end sometimes. Like he's not your typical edge rusher, right? He's more like a hybrid kind of player. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, that's correct. He came in inside a lot because one of the biggest weaknesses on our defense is whoever's behind Chris Jones on the inside. Derek Notty's been doing it for a few years, but that's kind of like the hole in the defensive front. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times Steve Spagnuolo will flip guys around, bring, nickel blitz or something like that if we have fewer guys in the defensive line. So Dana he was one of the biggest offseason extensions, in my opinion, because he allows that flexibility. He knows the system. He's been here this will be his 5th year. So having that familiarity with Spagnuolo's complicated scheme, like gives him that edge, especially as guys like Karlaftis or Anudike-Uzomah come along.
So with the Spags talk, like I've got to ask about linebackers and safeties because I feel like last year I stopped doing them partway through the season because the Bears season was brutal. I was like, I can't put 8 hours of tape review into a Bears game anymore. But I used to do scouting reports, and one of the last ones I did was KC, and it was just like it was like watching masterful art the way that this guy was playing his linebackers and safeties. But I couldn't I don't know exactly how to describe it because it's like I felt like he was rotating like 4 or 5 linebackers in and out and using them almost like a defensive line rotation would. But so what exactly does Spags do between the linebacker room and the safety room to be so effective?
Something different almost every play. It's so difficult to watch as a fan or even someone that, I have a pretty good understanding of football, but even just watching it, I get confused about who's in what position because he switches it up so often. The AFC Championship game against Lamar was a masterclass, in my opinion, just the ways he was disguising coverages and doing different things. And so, just on any given play, we could have Trent McDuffie pulling a fake shadow while Chris Jones lines up on the outside and Mike Dana stunts inside, and then Trent McDuffie ultimately winds up, blitzing. And then L'Jarius Sneed or Justin Reed or someone slides down to shadow. It's very unique. And as a Chiefs fan for my entire life, from the Bob Sutton days, it's really beautiful to see. Like, I don't feel like I should be sitting on the couch being able to predict the plays that are happening. So I just sit back and watch. It almost looks like Broadway unfolded.
Yeah, no,
I
love
love watching
it.
that defense.
It's so much fun to watch. It's like you said, you just don't know what's coming next, and it's just like a giant mystery, and you're trying to solve it the whole time. And that whole time, you're also seeing an offensive coordinator trying to solve it and struggling to do it. So it makes you feel pretty good about yourself at the same time as a fan. But why don't we, instead of just getting in position by position right now, why don't we go through some of the subtractions on this roster?
Mm-hmm.
And Joe, I'd love to hear from you what you think some of these subtractions mean for the roster and who might need to step up in that place. And we already talked a little bit about L'Jarius Sneed, and you talked about, the interesting aspect with McDuffie and Watson, but is Williams going to be CB3 and is McDuffie going to be in the nickel, you think, when they're in nickel, obviously, because I don't think McDuffie's coming off the field, but how do you see this cornerback room playing out?
So if you'd asked me before the start of last season, I would have put Joshua Williams ahead of Jalen Watson. But last year, Williams had just under 30% of snaps. Watson had a little bit over 40. He seems to have overtaken him despite being drafted in the 7th round versus the 4th. I think it's going to shake out where, unless Spags is doing some kind of disguising, I think Jalen Watson is going to take that L'Jarius Sneed type of shadow role and let McDuffie roam around. He was first team All-Pro for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not positive on that. It's one of the things that I'm really excited to see on training camp. Guys that I'd look out for, though, Najee Johnson, Shamari Connor, and then we have Brian Cook coming back at safety off of a broken ankle in the middle of last year. And a big thing with Spags is his safeties and his corners, aside from a guy like Justin Reed, they'll be interchangeable. Like, part of the reason that he can do all these disguises is because you don't know who's going to be covering you. So it could be any of them, and I think that we might see an increase in the disguises until someone asserts themselves in that Sneed role, because he's a huge loss. It's terrible to lose him. He was amazing last year, but I think we're going to see some disguises to help fix that.
Now, when you say aside from Justin Reed, is that because he's the center fielder at all times or most of the time kind of thing?
Most of the time. You don't usually see him doing the disguise. Like, if Justin Reed's doing some kind of nefarious activities, it's typically a blitz.
Okay. And then, so Nick Allegretti, did he play much last year? Because I know he's been a guy who's been there for years and been a big part of them getting rings, but I don't remember if he actually saw much of the field last year.
So he started the Super Bowl, actually.
Okay.
Joe Tooney got hurt, I want to say, in the Bills game. I might be wrong on that. But whenever Joe Tooney went down, Allegretti stepped up and took over. And he hurts a lot, honestly. We took 3 offensive linemen in the draft this year. Partially, 2 of them were guards, in my opinion, to try to replace Allegretti, because he was a guy that could play multiple positions. We've got Trey Smith as an upcoming free agent. Joe Tooney has 1 year left on his deal. So we need guards, and losing Allegretti, but good for him. He'll be a starter with Washington. That's one of the more significant injuries, in my opinion, because if Trey Smith or Tooney go down, we're hurting a bit.
Now, I mean, y'all got Hunter Norzad, and that was my dude in this draft class. I mean, I doubt you saw my Twitter profile until just like this week, but
I'm pumped about him.
The background of my Twitter profile said Hunter Norzad no matter what, and I was crushed when he wasn't a Chicago Bear. So I'm happy for you guys for getting the Penn State legend / Cornell legend that is the most beautiful mullet in football in Hunter Norzad.
You Bears fans had a pretty good draft, though.
I was trust me, I slept just fine. But moving past that, I'm curious, what type of role do you think Jaden Hicks is going to have here? Because he was a really weird player to watch, and he was a guy who I was probably further down on than most of the public. But then he went to Spags, and I was like, Spags is going to be fun with him.
Everything changes when
he's the kind of guy. Yeah, he's him and Kamal Hadden in the 6th round are, if you were to try to build the mid to late round safeties or corners that you would put in a Spag system, it'd be them. his physicality is awesome. And Justin Reed's coming up on an extension this year. This is last year of his deal. He'll be 28 by that time. He's probably looking at a pretty hefty deal. Brett Veach has literally never signed a player in the secondary to an extension. So we're looking at physical players. That's why Brian Cook's really important this year to kind of take over that Tyrann Mathieu Honey Badger, Justin Reed physicality role. Jaden Hicks feels like the insurance policy to Brian Cook. So I'm fired up about him. I over at Casey Kingdom, I wrote a couple mock drafts, and two of like the people I wanted more than anything were Kingsley Suamataia and Jaden Hicks. Jaden Hicks is going to be nice in specs. If he went to, I don't know, the Titans, I wouldn't feel so confident, but he's going to be cool for us. He's going to be really nice.
Now with Suamataia, did you think 63 was a bit of a reach, or did you think that was about where he belonged?
I thought it was about right.
Okay.
And again, take my word for what it's worth. But it felt like I think that the Chiefs were emphasizing athleticism in that tackle spot, and they wanted some kind of, not to say that he has necessarily a hugely different skill set from Wanya Morris, but I think that they weren't fully sold on Wanya Morris to take over that Donovan Smith role. And so they wanted someone with a lot of upside. If he hits what his athletic profile could be, it's going to be a great pick, where it kind of represents the opposite of the safe pick that I felt like Morris was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was genuinely asking because Suamataia was a guy who I had a really hard time valuing on my draft board, because it was like, this guy is so raw, but the athleticism is ludicrous. And I just, I hit a point where it's like, I don't like his tape at all, but that doesn't mean that he's not worth this range. It just means I don't know how to grade it, because it's like, guys that raw come out all the time and do something in the league. You look at like a Jordan Mailata, I mean, he didn't even know how to play the game. But at the same time, it's like I'm trying to build a grade based on film, and the film is not there for me with him. But that brings me to, like you mentioned, Wanya Morris, who is interesting to me because he's a guy who I thought last year in the draft had so much upside.
We both liked him a lot.
Yeah, and he seemed like he had a pretty rough up and down college career, but it ended on a decently high note once he got with the right coaching staff, the right team. And I thought he looked outstanding at the Senior Bowl last year. And I went back and watched two of his games just last week from late in the season, once he started getting some snaps last year in KC when they needed someone to fill in at left tackle. And it was like really up and down. But man, the game against the Bengals for him when he's battling with Trey Hendrickson, I thought that was really fun to watch and really showed some really nice stuff from him. But how is it at this point where it's sitting there going into camp, or not camp quite yet, but soon, where you're saying Morris, it's his job to lose, or is it more Suamataia and him are just battling for it? Because especially once you start to consider I believe Morris just got arrested last week. Is that right?
Yeah, he got arrested for a misdemeanor marijuana charge, and I live really close to the state border.
Of our Lord.
Yeah, so it's legal in Missouri recreationally, cannabis, and illegal in Kansas. But state line essentially is a 5-minute divide from what Kansas City as, from Missouri to Kansas. He was like 8 minutes on the Kansas side. So he was really close. And I don't think personally that the Chiefs really care about that with everything else that's going on this offseason. I don't think it matters. Right, exactly. So I don't think that part matters. With the Morris thing's interesting. I really liked him as a prospect as well, just like you guys. And it's a great question, and it's probably the single biggest thing to watch in training camp for the Chiefs, because I think you hit the points perfectly. So Suamataia represents the athletic, high upside player. Morris, we saw games for the Chiefs in the Super Bowl as a rookie. Donovan Smith ultimately did, but if he remained injured, it would have been Morris. So they were comfortable enough with him in that regard. but also not comfortable enough that they used the number 63 overall pick and traded up with the Niners to get Suamata'i. So I think they look at Morris as the safe play. And if Kingsley doesn't work out, we've got a guy. But in my opinion, drafting Kingsley says that they don't view him as a long-term answer. Or he could be Jawan Taylor replacement in a couple years. But for me, I think that Morris has the job right now. I'd put it probably like a 65-35. But I think that the second that he has some kind of, ailment or nagging injury, they're going to say, hey, Kingsley, see what you got. And see if he takes the bull by the horns.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think the one other glaring issue glaring question, not issue, but question when I look at this is Rashee Rice and how this is going to play out at the wide receiver spot, because Hollywood and Xavier, I feel like they're a little bit redundant to each other. Like, I think Xavier has some more upside than Hollywood does, but smaller speedster types, I feel like is a fair way to describe them, even if I think Worthy's route running is probably a bit better than that. But we look at the rest of this wide receiver room, and do you trust Justin Watson?
No.
One of my favorite bets the last 3 years is Justin Watson over 16.5 yards. And he broke my heart
I bet it a bunch of
times last year. Just so many times where he just dropped like a 30-yard ball. And it's just like, I can't do it.
Yeah, so many drops.
So there's a few points here off of that. First, no, I don't trust him. Second, tied to that though.
Who do you trust in this wide receiver?
No, yeah, I didn't trust him last year, and it worked out. I trust Patrick, and we'll figure it out on the way.
Yeah.
But so the Rashee Rice thing is really interesting because none of us here have any idea what's happening. Nate Taylor of The Athletic, who I believe is a fantastic reporter, a Kansas City beat reporter for them, he thinks it's going to be 6 to 8 games at the beginning of this year. Other reporting that I've seen indicates it could come the following year after the legal case potentially plays out. None of us know. So it's this black cloud hanging over this theoretical three-peat. But the issue for me is that regardless of whether or not Rashee Rice is playing, so as it stands, Sky Moore is the wide receiver with the most experience in this system. Second place is Kadarius Toney. And Sky Moore has 2 years. Kadarius has 1.5 years. Those are the two most experienced receivers in this system. And, I mean, I have an issue with that. But I've also watched Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, make lemonade out of lemons enough times that I've got faith. But no, it's a scary concern, to say the least.
After what they did last year with that wide receiver room, I mean, if there was ever any doubts about Patrick Mahomes, I think all of those questions have been answered now. But I didn't love Xavier Worthy coming into this draft, but as soon as he got to the Chiefs, I'm like, love that pick. I didn't really like him, but it's like as soon as he got there, I'm like, oh yeah, they'll make that work.
If Patrick wants him, sounds good to me. That's kind of where I'm at. I didn't necessarily want him either. The size definitely concerns me, but vroom vroom, go fast. Patrick wants you. Sounds good to me.
Speaking of Patrick,
as long as you can have Travis Kelce out there not dropping balls, I think that wide receivers will be just fine.
So I went back and pulled a bunch of numbers on Pat, and it was like I was trying to break these down evenly for every quarterback we look at. So I just broke it down as top 16 defenses versus bottom 16 defenses. Pat was better against top 16 defenses, even though he was working with very little last season. And it's just like the more you dig on this guy, the more ridiculous everything gets. It's incredible.
I love the first thing that stuck out to me here is the negative 6.2 completion percentage over expectation against the Lions, because I bet every single one of those negative marks was a pass to Kadarius Toney. Oh, yeah. It was right in his hands. And yeah, the thing that it looked like over the course of the season was that against the lighter opponents was when he was Let's see if Sky Moore can catch this contested pass. Let's see if this can happen. And then the harder games, he was taking off and running or dumping to Travis or something like that. Like, he knows when to pick and choose his spots to see if someone's going to earn it or not, which is really impressive in my opinion. And it's unbelievable now to be in the position where I'm looking at the regular season thinking it does not matter what happens. As long as he's healthy in the playoffs, we're good.
Right. And I think that's exactly what I was coming away from these numbers thinking, that like, so he can screw around a little more against the bottom 16 defenses and try to, it's something that gets kind of brushed over sometimes, of like, not every game gets game planned the same way. Like, teams need some break weeks on their schedule where they're saying, okay, we're rolling out half the same game plan as last week, and we're just going to try to grit this one out because our guys need a break. And that's usually against the bottom 16 defenses for an offense, I feel like. And those are the games where I feel like Pat Mahomes, you look at the ADOT, almost a full yard higher, the CPOE 2 percentage points lower. Like, he was taking more risks, taking more chances, it felt like. But against the top 16 defense, it's more buttoned up. It's more like, okay, we got to do what's going to work.
You also have to factor in that he had an infant last year during the season. And so, like, our Christmas Day loss to the Raiders, he had 2 young kids on Christmas Day. He's going to pick and choose the spots that he knows he can pull daddy duty. Right. So be on the lookout. We got the Steelers on Christmas this year. I'm not feeling too confident about that one.
Justin Fields.
I love Justin Fields, honestly.
It's going to be a 2 QB offense, man.
If the Steelers run a 2 QB offense on Christmas Day, I think the Chiefs will just mail that one in. Let them have it.
Yeah. Well, Phil, I've already got it confirmed that Cowboys week 4, Russ is gonna be playing bad. They're gonna be down like 17-3 at halftime. Justin Fields is gonna come in at halftime and they're gonna put up like 400 yards in the second half against us and probably run for 200, throw for a couple of touchdowns and beat us about 35-28.
Heard it here first. Get those bets.
Just like Dan Quinn would have drawn it up.
So glad Dan Quinn's gone. Have fun with him, Washington. So, I mean, the fact that he went to Washington and offensive coordinator went to Philly, it feels like that's an inside job. Like, Jerry Jones is pulling the strings there.
It's a rigged game. But one last thing I want to talk about these position groups. Outside of left tackle, this might be one of the best offensive lines in football, if not the best offensive line. Like, the interior is probably the best in football between the guards and center.
Okay, Humphrey's far and away the best center in the league.
Yeah. And, I mean, Joe Tooney's probably the best guard in the league, and Trey Smith is no slouch either. Like, and I like Jawan Taylor in pass pro quite a bit. His run blocking, I didn't think was as bad as his PFF grades tend to say it is, but I don't think he's poor by any means. So that left tackle spot is really the only one. I'm just like, as long as you give Pat an O-line like this, I think he's going to be able to cook. And even like you mentioned the Raiders game from last year, I watched that one to be looking at the Raiders defense, and man, that was not a pretty game for Wanya Morris. Like that, there was like at least one interception that was probably on Wanya in that game.
Yeah, and sorry about that. I lost you at the very end there. I agree that the left tackle is the only real question. So Jawan Taylor had a lot of penalties last year that we'd have to keep an eye on. But on the interior, I mean, yeah. And Isaiah Pacheco's run style, assuming that he stays healthy, is a perfect complement to that interior bruising style.
I love the way Isaiah Pacheco runs the football. It is a sight to behold.
He's so much fun. That's a position that is a big question mark aside from left tackle and from Rashee Rice and the back end of the cornerback room. Is there's no more Jerick McKinnon. He's been huge for us. Like right now, we've got Pacheco, we've got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then it's practice squad guys and Luis Reese-Zammit, Reese Lightning, as we call him. That's the running back room. And so someone needs to be that Jerick McKinnon role, because I mean he had a catch on the game-winning drive of the Super Bowl. He had 9 receiving touchdowns the year before. we've got no one to take over for him right now. So that I'm waiting for an undrafted rookie or someone like that to take over because I don't think Clyde's it as much as I wish he was.
I loved Clyde in that draft. I was like, oh, it's a perfect complement to that offense. Like, he can do it all. He can run. He can catch. And he just hasn't been that. So, I mean, Pacheco's been huge for him, though. I bet they figure out some sort of scat back that they have on the team that can do those things, or they'll use Xavier Worthy or Hollywood Brown and that type of out of the backfield receiver role, stuff like that. I mean, never question Andy Reid's ability to scheme something.
Yeah, I mean, especially once you factor in like having Hollywood and Xavier on the outside. If you're in 11 personnel, it's gonna be real hard to defend the run when you got two burners on the outside. I think it's gonna be hard to put bodies in the box.
You still have Jason Kelce going across the middle.
My like deepest, most back end of Reddit take for the Chiefs offense is that Kadarius Toney should be the new Jerick McKinnon. And then he should be out of the backfield, running those jet sweeps. If we can minimize the number of times that he has to catch, if he's doing that little pitch shovel right up the middle, if we start him in the backfield, because he's great with the ball in his hands, getting the ball there is the issue. So maybe we try that. That's my crazy conspiracy with the Chiefs is that I want Kadarius Toney to be running back.
It worked for Cordero Patterson.
Exactly. Thank you.
Cordero.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes,
I wanted him this offseason. I felt like he would have been perfect.
Who doesn't want a Cordero Patterson on their team?
And these new kickoff rules would be nasty.
They're gonna have Justin Fields returning kicks in Pittsburgh.
They were talking last week about Justin Reed doing kickoffs since you only have that first line of defense.
Oh, yeah,
so getting Butker out of there and having Justin Reed do the kickoffs. So
he's a pretty good kicker too for a skill position.
Oh yeah,
you can get the job done for sure. Yeah, I mean that's smart. You have an extra defender out there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so looking at the last 5 years of this, it's got to feel pretty good to be a Chiefs fan. Like 63-20 over the last 5 years, 9 straight playoff appearances, 8 straight division titles, and 3 Super Bowls now?
3 Super Bowls, been to 4, 6 straight AFC Championship games.
Starting with you, Joe, and then going to Jay, on the bottom left corner of this, what do you see here that makes sense from a betting standpoint? Everything?
Certainly to win the division. Like everything. The Super Bowl and AFC Championship are a given, provided everyone stays healthy, in my opinion. The Bengals collapsed in the AFC title game, and then the Patriots beating us in overtime was the only times we didn't make the Super Bowl in Patrick Mahomes' entire career. And the big thing, I know Tom Brady had his comments on the Herd the other day about how difficult it is to win a three-peat. Mahomes lost to Brady in the Super Bowl. This is the one year that he has the opportunity to do something that Brady never accomplished. Like, this is the opportunity. If Mahomes stays healthy, the Super Bowl at plus 600 is an absolute steal. Honestly, what I would bet, aside from just like go Chiefs everything, is the Travis Kelce unders on receiving yards. I think they're going to protect him this year. Honestly, I think they're going to protect Kelce. They want to. I mean, he was so good in the playoffs after getting week 17 and 18 a rest. We just got Jared Wiley. We got Irv Smith Jr.
Yeah, I've got his.
I think that Kelce is gonna. And he was great, and then at the end of the year, he was a little bit hurt, and they rested him.
What kind of numbers do you think he'll put up this year?
I'm thinking like an 800-yard year.
Oh, that little?
Honestly, yes, because I think that his snaps are going to be brought down to ensure he's healthy, because they saw last year.
Yeah.
I mean, he was struggling.
I hear, so if he, even with the lower usage rate, 18 games or 17 game season, I think if he plays 14 games, he'll hit 1,000 yards.
So he had the huge chunk yardage weeks, the almost 200 against the Broncos and the like 160 or so against the Chargers last year. Outside of that, he was at like 40 a game. And I think that they're going to try to get other guys that work. I might be wrong on that. I hope I'm wrong.
Nursing an injury most of last year. I thought he was throughout the whole season.
And that's part of.
He had like an ankle or something,
he missed
right?
week 1. He missed week 1, and I think they're going to be weary of that and say all we need is Kelsey to be healthy for the playoffs. So I think they're going to reduce his snaps a little bit. Outside of that, though, you can't go wrong with Chiefs to win the division and Chiefs to, like, if you parlay us to win the division with somebody else, or you just bet it straight up. I mean, this is going to be the 9th straight year. It's easy. Minus 230. Just take whatever 9 out of 10 odds are, and that's the value over minus.
Travis Kelce missing week 1 last year was incredible for fantasy because Sam Laporta was just on the waivers, and I was like, shit, I need a last second starter, and I picked up Sam Laporta. And that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I think this entire year is just going to be get the important people healthy to the playoffs. We have a hard schedule.
Yeah,
11-6 last year proved it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so I'm looking at these numbers and everything on bets. I really like the under 11.5 wins. I think the AFC is strong now. I think the AFC is as strong now as it's ever been. You just talked about all that matters is playoffs and Super Bowls anyway. So, yeah, I mean, 11 wins last year. I think the division's getting better. I think the entire AFC as a whole is getting better. And I think 11-6 is more than enough to have you in the running for number 1 seed in the AFC next year. So I'm just talking value here, value-wise out of all these. Like, plus 600 on Super Bowls, bonkers numbers. Like, there's so many things that could go wrong before a season even starts that I don't really see much value there. But, I mean,
that's what it was last year.
At even money, I like the under. I mean, if you would have done both last year, you would have came out great. You would have got the under 11.5 and the Super Bowl.
That's fair. That's fair.
I think you're right. I think there is some value on that.
If it wasn't 11, if it was just 11, I wouldn't like it. Yeah. But having the hook there, that's probably what I like the most. But I mean, I'm gonna bet them to win the Super Bowl. I mean, I had a Patrick Mahomes MVP bet his second year in the league that paid out like $250 to 1.
Let's go. Great bet. Great bet. The argument against the 11.5, and I mean, again, I just made the argument on the other side, so take it for what it's worth. But last year, you look at some of the games that were lost. You had the Broncos scoring 2 defense touchdowns in 6 seconds just before Christmas. You had the Raiders winning on Christmas, or reverse. It was the Raiders who scored the 2 defense touchdowns. You had the Broncos winning the ridiculous game when Mahomes had the flu. You had the Lions lost that Kelsey was out, Chris Jones was out, Kadarius Toney was out. You had all those things happen, and they still would have just won you that under by the hook. Every other year of Mahomes' career under Andy, they've won at least 12, even dating back to the last year of Alex Smith's career, won 12. Andy typically wins 12, but the question is, if they go 2-0 or 0-2 in the first 2 weeks, that'll tell you. Like, if the Chiefs
do we have their
beat
schedule?
The Ravens, and we got the Ravens week 1 and the Bengals week 2. That'll tell you.
I'll just pull up the schedule real quick so we can see it. I think he's got it.
Yeah.
Oh shoot! I thought you were asking me. Apologies. But you'll know immediately.
Yeah.
Because
I think they can. I think they can start 0-2 and still get the over. I worry about what this Chargers team is going to look like that we'll talk about here in a minute. Under Harbaugh, I don't think they're going to be great, but they're going to be a hard team to beat, and playing them twice on top of you got Baltimore, Cincinnati, and then Atlanta's going to be frisky. I mean, I just think it's going to be a fun season, and like I said, I think 11-6 can still win you the AFC. But I just think the AFC is so tough that at even money, that's kind of what I was thinking. But 12-5 wouldn't surprise me one bit because, I mean, you could definitely find the wins there. But Houston late in the season, I mean, that's going to be a huge game, I think.
I hate that one. That's our it's the sandwich game. We have 3 in 10 days. We've got Cleveland
in the middle.
And then Yeah, and then Texans, and then the Steelers is the third game in the 10 days on Christmas. It's a ridiculous scheduling.
Yeah,
we're supposed to be the champions. Why are you doing this to us? What are we doing?
They gotta level the playing field somehow.
I love that Houston game. We're Stroud boys over here on this podcast. So
I wanted Houston week 1, man. I love their team. Nico just got that big extension today. Instead, we got to play the Ravens and the
Texans
Bengals.
week 1. Texans week 1 would have been fun.
Yeah, and now they're in a part where I just want to be healthy.
I love that Ravens game though to open the season. I mean, that's probably got to be one of the best season openers that we've had in a while. Last year ended up being a really good game, but everybody was worried about the Lions. Like, they're supposed to be good, but are we really going to put them on primetime week 1? They ended up showing out. But yeah, very nervous about that game last year. We were been on the Lions wagon for 3 years going into that. And that was like our make or break. Like, we've been calling our shot here for 3 years straight. Like, it's now or never.
Hey, man, they covered every year. They were the best team against the spread for 3 straight years.
Yeah.
And we were the first on that train.
Yeah. But, I mean,
I'm looking forward to seeing who you're on this year.
Oh, last year we were on the Texans. We called that right after the draft. I mean, I've been a huge Stroud fan ever since his very first start at Ohio State. The entire country was shitting on him, and then all he did from there was just be incredible. And I love CJ Stroud. He's not Patrick Mahomes, but love CJ Stroud.
I think we're leaning towards the Cardinals right now, but we haven't made a decision yet.
Ooh, I like that. That's solid. Especially with the leaky defense, you'll get a big number that Kyler can backdoor.
Yeah, I like their O-line. I like their head coach, Jonathan Gannon, a lot. So I just think that all the pieces are there. They're going to be very much disrespected in the preseason odds and everything. I could honestly see them winning the division also, too. I mean, San Fran stayed extremely healthy the last 4 years. I just don't see them. I don't see that keeping up. And we're about to find out real quick if Brock Purdy can keep this thing going or not. So
I think he's fine. I don't think he can, though. The NFC champion never repeats. It's been 10 years since the NFC champion repeated. It's going to be somebody new. Like the Super Bowl hangover on a loss like that, it'll be real.
Cowboys, it's our year, baby. It's always our year. It's been our year.
Love to see you there.
I would love to see you there. It's been our year for 28 straight years. It's got to hit eventually.
I got to be honest with you. I got the Packers. I got Chiefs over Packers.
Ooh. No, we don't talk about them.
I know. Podcast. I'm just telling you, that's my pick. That's who I think.
I mean,
I was wrong last year. So
I can see it, and I don't want to, but I don't know. We'll see.
No, I predicted last week we're going to see Caleb Williams versus Patrick Mahomes match up in the Super Bowl a minimum of 4 times. So might as well start year 1.
Would be a happy man if that happens. I'll be a very happy man too, but Roger Goodell will be very happy if that happens.
I love that prediction. I support
it. Well, Joe, thank you so much for jumping on with us. Can you tell the people again where to find you, your Twitter handle, where you write for, all that good stuff?
Twitter handle at I am Joe Summers, like the season but plural. You can find me on the Fansided Network. KCKingdom.com is where you'll find the majority of my work, but anywhere across the Fanside you'll find me. Again, really appreciate you guys having me on. This was a blast, and I'm rooting for the Bears and go Texas Tech.
All right, sir. Wreck 'em Tech.
Adios. All right, Jay. What do you say we get into the record here, and then we will move on to the Chargers?
So we just talked about that. I like the under, but I'm about to give these guys 12 wins right here. But I mean, I think week 1 Ravens. I think they lose this game.
Yeah, that one. I think that's possible. I
just think Lamar coming off MVP season. I think that defense is going to be improved in Baltimore. A fully healthy Ravens team, adding Derrick Henry. I don't think Derrick Henry has a ton left in the tank, but I think if there's ever a game to get up for Derrick Henry, it's this one.
Yeah, no, I went back and forth on this one. I think they're going to go 1-1 in those first 2, and it was just which one
Yeah.
I ended up going with Chiefs week 1, Bengals week 2, but I can see it going the other way.
So then after this, I got the Chiefs winning at home versus the Bengals. Then
and so
going to
let me say why I chose to go Chiefs Bengals instead of Ravens Chiefs in those first 2 games. And it's the wide receivers for the Ravens. Again, like, I don't think that they are going to be a real problem for a Chiefs secondary that's still going to be figuring things out. But I think that the Bengals receivers might be a real problem for that secondary before they get things rolling.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, let's just hope we have a fully healthy Joe Burrow versus a fully healthy Patrick Mahomes for this.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, and then I have them beating Atlanta in Atlanta. I kind of do like this Atlanta team this year, but yeah, I got to take the Chiefs there.
Kirk Cousins has astigmatism. He can't play on Sunday night.
Yeah, so Chargers. First game against Chargers, I'm going to give to the Chiefs. And then I'm going to give them the New Orleans game. And then I'm with you. I think they lose to the Niners.
That's going to be a big game for the 49ers.
Yeah.
Lost twice in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs. Like, they're going to care a lot about that one.
Mm-hmm. Raiders, I have the Chiefs there. You have the Chiefs as well.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the Buccaneers. Kind of like the Buccaneers here in a Monday night game coming off that Raiders game.
I thought about that one too. I was close to.
It's just Baker, man. I mean, I think Baker gets up for Patrick Mahomes more than anybody else, and just because he hates Texas Tech. And then after that, first Denver game, I'll take the Chiefs here. I'm with you here. This is the Bills Super Bowl. I'm taking the Bills.
Yeah, so week 11 in Buffalo. I mean, that's the biggest game of the year for the Bills. They're going to be up for that game.
I like the Chiefs here against the Panthers. And I like the Chiefs against the Raiders. I'll take the Chargers in the second matchup. I think Harbaugh getting to see a team twice. I don't see him getting swept by anybody in the division this year.
Yeah, I think I thought about that one. I was close.
Yeah. And then we have Cleveland. I'll take the Chiefs here. I don't really love this Cleveland team this year. Unless Deshaun Watson just completely turns it around.
So I really like the Browns in that one. And the main reason is because questions at offensive tackle for the Chiefs, Myles Garrett can wreck a game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, truly. But I'm assuming this late into the season, hopefully they've done something to figure that out. I'm taking Houston week 16. I think this is going to be an awesome game. I wouldn't be surprised if these two teams are fighting for the 1 seed. And then Steelers on Christmas Day, a Wednesday. Horrible in
Pittsburgh. This is how Mike Tomlin gets like to his 9th win.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Mike Tomlin's streak of not a losing season continues. I'll take the Steelers there. Then I'll take the Chiefs to finish it out. And what's that record there? Is there anybody count that up?
Yeah, I'm at 10-7.
10-7. I think they'll get to 11, but yeah, now going through their schedule, I really like that under actually.
Yeah,
because there's some wins there's some wins I gave them that could have been losses, and there's some losses that I gave them that could be wins. But I think 11.5.
It's not ranked as that tough a schedule. Must be because the Broncos stink, I guess.
The Broncos
by Vegas odds and traditional strength of schedule, they're in the easier half of.
It's probably the Broncos
NFL.
twice, and I bet they're not showing much love to the Chargers either.
Yeah,
but
and also the Panthers.
Oh, the Raiders. They got the Raiders. They got the Panthers. They got the Raiders.
The Raiders
Panthers.
were 7-10 last year. I mean, they weren't awful.
Yeah, but having them twice.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have 3 teams in your division that had a losing record last year.
Oh yeah, because the Chargers' record was awful. That okay, that makes sense then. That why the traditional they'd only be the 9th easiest schedule.
Yeah. But I don't think anybody's looking at that division this year thinking it's as bad as it was last year by any means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
okay, and then I got the Chiefs at 12-5 in mine. So we're actually pretty similar thought process on most of them, just a little bit different outcome on a few. But anyways.
I think that's going to be right up there with. I I think 11-6, 12-5, somewhere in that range wins the AFC.
Yeah. But let's get on over, power through a few more here. Let's get to the Chargers.
We'll go a little bit faster through these.
Yeah.
But, okay, looking at this Chargers team, I think it starts with this defense and a Harbaugh-led team. You look at this defensive line, there's a lot of money there. You have Khalil Mack, you have Joey Bosa on the edges. Joey Bosa, when was the last time this guy stayed healthy? I don't know. Khalil Mack had great numbers last year, but, I mean, he's starting to get a little old. And then I love Asante Samuel. I love Derwin James. I love a lot of guys on this defense. But up to this point, we really haven't seen him perform, but it's also Harbaugh. And he gets the most out of people. So what are you expecting from this defense here?
I think Khalil Mack is going to keep being a dude. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be another double-digit sack season.
They should trade him to Chicago.
He'll get 8 to 10 sacks for sure, and he'll be a constant presence against the run. I accidentally covered my mouth there as I was talking. But outside of that, I mean, I don't know what to expect from Joey Bosa. I think Thule is going to be a pretty solid football player in the league for a while. Like, I'm not sure he's going to be a star, but I think he's going to be good. I think his numbers were a little inflated last year, but ultimately, I do think he's a solid edge rusher who can probably beat if Joey Bosa goes down. I feel fine with Thule stepping in and being the guy there at that point. On the interior, I like Morgan Fox more than I probably should, but behind that, I mean, Poona Ford is it's a lot of very meh stuff on this D line outside of Khalil Mack and Thule, and like Bosa, I'd almost put in the meh at this point just because we haven't seen it in a while. You know, I mean, he's a good football player. It's just a question of whether he will be out there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do moving forward with this defense, but I mean, I like the guys that they have currently, and if they can stay healthy with Harbaugh, I like it a lot. But you look at this team and what they lost this year. Lost both their wide receivers, they lost their tight end, and they lost Austin Eckler. And I don't think Austin Eckler is that big of a loss, but I think losing Everett, Allen, and Williams, even though Williams hasn't really necessarily been able to stay healthy, I mean, when he was healthy, he was an absolute force. And now you look at this wide receiver room with Quentin Johnson, Joshua Palmer, Ladd McConkey. Will Disley at tight end, I don't hate. But, so, I mean, do you think they're expecting Quentin Johnson to make any sort of jump here? Or do you think this is just we'll find receivers later? It's not the most important thing in our offense right now.
I think there's some Harbaugh hubris here who's like, yeah, Michael Crabtree wasn't that good till I got my hands on him either. You know, like, I mean, I think there's some of that going. I think there's some of Jim Harbaugh watched Quentin Johnson torch his defense in a college football playoff game too. Yeah. So, you know, he believes there's something more there.
Do you think that's the sole reason why I took this job? Because everybody's like, Quentin Johnson sucks. And he was like, just at home, he was like, Quentin Johnson doesn't suck. I saw him torch me. And so he was like, I'm going to go take this job just to prove to people that Quentin Johnson doesn't suck.
Probably. I mean, I think
that sounds like something Harbaugh would do.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, I like Josh Palmer. He's a wide receiver 3, maybe a low end wide receiver 2. But in this offense, he's going to have to be 2 if Quentin Johnson is 1, unless Ladd McConkey becomes that guy, which I wouldn't say he can. I like Ladd McConkey a whole heck of a lot, but it's just a lot of weight on a rookie.
Yeah, and so what kind of passing game does Roman have? What does he? Is he like a West Coast guy when it comes to passing? Like, because I know he's run heavy.
Passing game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really basic stuff. I don't even know that I could put it in a branch of anything like West Coast or like I don't even know what else you'd throw out there. Like
you got like air raid.
It's not air raid.
RPOs kinda.
It's probably RPO more like
a 1980s San Francisco 49ers.
Maybe like a Schottenheimer. Like,
yeah,
you know, it's a lot of play action. A lot of the route concepts really aren't that complex. Everything is pretty simple, but it's all based around the run game. Like that's my understanding of it, at least.
With that being said, what do you think about this running back room with Gus Edwards, Isaiah Spiller, J.K. Dobbins? I love J.K. Dobbins coming into the draft. I think he would have been fantastic on that Ravens team without injuries. I mean, I think when he was healthy, he showed a lot of good things. But last time he was fully healthy, I thought even a fully healthy J.K. Dobbins, he looked slow.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even talk about it. Like I just it's been so little the last like he didn't play last year hardly. He only had 222 rushing yards. Like so I can't put much faith in J.K. Dobbins. Gus Edwards has been reliable. He's been a constant in this league. So I wouldn't say he can't.
Were all three of these guys on the Ravens at one point?
Isaiah Spiller over there? He was drafted by the Chargers.
Oh, okay.
Spiller might have a shot. Like Spiller hasn't really had a lot of opportunity with the Chargers. So maybe he might bust out here. Kamani Vidal, I think, is a really nice pickup for them. And a guy who, if you're in a dynasty league, you probably want to pick up Kamani Vidal because he's going to get opportunities in this room.
And maybe this is the year Hayden Hurst finally breaks out.
Hey, maybe. I mean, so ultimately where I land with this is like, this team's going to run block.
Yeah.
Someone's going to get the rushing yards.
Yeah. I mean, you look at this offensive line. Rashawn Slater is an absolute like road grader on that offensive line. Then I like Bradley Bozeman at center a lot. We both kind of like Zion Johnson last year in the draft.
Or 2 years ago.
2 years ago. Whatever. I remember us talking about him. But I mean, I think there's a lot to like here. And when we were talking about
they picked up a UDFA offensive guard named Willis Patrick. That has to be a joke. I didn't even catch that when I was writing this. That can't be real.
Hey, he just saw the name and he was like, "Oh, that guy's out there."
Yeah.
He's like, are we sure this name's correct?
Corey Linsley retiring hurts, but it wasn't unexpected. They were prepared. They picked up Bradley Bozeman, who knows this offensive scheme well. He's worked with Greg Roman in Baltimore. Jamari Sawyer is a nice surprise for this team last year, 2 years ago.
It's crazy how much Baltimore is on this team, considering his brother. Like,
yeah,
it's just like the older brother's like, okay, I'm done playing with all this. Like, you can have it now.
But I mean, I really, this group, they haven't historically shown a strong ability to run block. You look at those PFF run block grades; it's a lot of red. But
I think in a different offensive
and in a gap scheme, I think they're going to be able to do some.
Yeah, I think a different style is definitely going to help. And yeah, it says they weren't great at run blocking, but I mean, Austin Eckler took 7 minutes to hit a hole last year too. Like
half the quarter was done by the time he got there.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that definitely has something to do with it. And we I kind of changed my thought about this team last year when we were talking about quarterbacks and we were looking at this roster with Justin Herbert, and we talked about it last week too. I mean, I think numbers wise, this is probably going to be Justin Herbert's worst year, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they have probably their most success since Justin Herbert entered the league.
Yeah, no, I could see it. I mean, I don't recall the year they made the playoffs. I think they might have won 11 games.
I think it was either 10 or
11 or 12, I want to say.
And then they missed a win and get in game the year before that.
Yeah. But
yeah,
I mean, I think they have a chance to go get 10, maybe even 11 wins this season. I think they're there to be had. But yeah. I do agree with you. I think Herbert's numbers are going to be down relative to what we're used to from him because, I mean, who's he throwing to?
Yeah, I mean, so I see a lot of potential here. I mean, DJ Shark was supposed to be like the next guy at one time, and I know he's older now. But, I mean, if he goes out there and just catches the ball, I think he's still a pretty good route runner. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out there and catches 65, 70 balls. And if he's the true wide receiver
if he's
3,
healthy, that's always been the thing with him.
Yeah, but if he's the true wide receiver 3, I mean, I think he can give some pretty good production there. And like you were saying earlier, Josh Palmer, a fringe 2 guy, probably a true 3. But if Quentin Johnson can just be
something.
Have something. Yeah. I mean, I don't hate this wide receiver room. I absolutely don't love it by any means. But
And if Lad McConkey's the big question to me, like if Lad McConkey can be what I think he can be, this receiver room starts to look fine.
Yeah, and then you look at this tight end room. I mean, is Donald Parham isn't he like huge? Isn't he like 6'7" or something like that?
He's huge. He's not that good. Like he's fine.
Yeah,
but it doesn't really. They added, but they're going to run a lot of heavy personnel. Is what I see in this tight end room. They're going to be in 12, 13 personnel.
I think Desley catches the ball fine. I think he's a pretty good route runner.
Yeah, he's fine.
So I mean, I think they can get some production in the receiving game there too. So I mean, there's some stuff to like here, but I mean, it's a Greg Roman offense. It's a run first offense, but it's a Greg Roman offense without Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the
thing. And how does that change? Like,
or Colin Kaepernick?
Yeah, but was he the OC in San Francisco?
Yeah, he was the Kaepernick brainchild. Like,
so he's just been with the Harbaughs his entire career, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. He was at Stanford too, I think.
That's crazy. But I didn't realize that. But yeah,
no, he's a Harbaugh through and through, man.
So Justin Herbert, I mean, it's not that he's not athletic, but he's not Kaepernick, and he's certainly not Lamar.
Yeah. Now let's look at the defense a little bit. We already talked a little bit about the D line. They went and had Bud Dupree, so they got another pro in there at least.
Retired.
So did I, but I mean, they picked him up last week. He must have just been injured. No, he was in Atlanta last year. And he played 63% of the snaps. So he was around. He can set the edge still. He's not going to give you a ton from the pass rush, I don't think, unless there's like was a long recovery from an injury or something. But the interior is really the spot where I get concerned about this defense. Like the edges, they got plenty of bodies there, and they got plenty of proven talent there. The edges will be fine, but the edges are going to need to take pressure off of the interior. And maybe they went and got a D coordinator who's going to run that Raven system that we saw last year. So it's going to be more of a versatile front where you're going to say, maybe some of these edges can take pressure off the interior, but I just don't know if they have the big bodies in there. I mean, Morgan Fox is a smaller guy. Scott Matlock is a bit of a tweener between D tackle, like 3-4 end type thing. I don't know a lot about Agbanya. Puna Ford's a little undersized. Like, so I just worry about their size.
How long did it take the 49ers to get good under Harbaugh? Was it 2 years?
Not even. It was year one.
Oh, was it year one?
I knew it was 12 games out the gate.
I knew it was quick. And they were coming off like a 4-win season or something like that.
Yeah.
From Chip Kelly, right? Or was Chip Kelly after?
No, it was Tom Sula was the head coach.
Yeah, okay.
And then Tom Sula was the head coach after Harbaugh. Tom Sula just doesn't leave San Francisco.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think we could see a really quick turnaround here.
I do too, and I mean, the linebacker room has some talent. I think Diane Henley is a guy I liked in the draft last year.
Don't tell that to a Chargers fan. They're the worst roster in the league.
Where one thing that I do like about this roster is the safeties. I feel like they have some pretty solid safeties here between Gilman and Derwin James.
I think a healthy Derwin James is the best safety in the league.
Yeah. But I do have some questions in the corner room behind Asante Samuel. Like Fulton has never really worked out. Jasir Taylor played some decent snaps last year, put up some decent
They could go sign J.C. Jackson. I think he's a free agent.
Is he again?
Yeah.
Did he go back? Give him another bag.
Yeah. I mean, what was it? 87 million? Like 80 or 63 million guaranteed or something. And
I don't even know.
Barely made it through a season.
Yeah. Or no, he didn't make it through the first season. He got hurt, but he was there like a year and a half.
Yeah, that's a pretty good return. I'll tell you what.
I will say, I think 5th round pick Cam Hart is going to be starting for this team.
Where's he from?
Notre Dame. He is feisty as hell. He is a Harbaugh dude through and through. I think he's going to be starting for this team and succeeding as long as he can stay healthy. Like
Richard Sherman.
I look at this corner room and I'm like, I want Cam Hart playing.
Yeah. I can see it for sure. And yeah, there's definitely room there to find his way into the role.
Yeah. All right, so
it's not to Samuel Jr. hasn't necessarily stayed healthy. Nobody on this team stayed healthy. I mean, that's going to be the biggest question mark for him is health.
Yeah, no, I think so. Cam Hart, I had like a second round grade on the dude. The health must have been pretty ugly for him to fall as far as he did.
Yeah.
But let's get to the Chargers schedule here. And so opening up at home against the Raiders. You got the Raiders taking this one.
I think Antonio Pierce coming off last year. I mean, I think he's got a lot of momentum there. And I think I like what he's doing with that team. I think they start hot next year. And then I think talent catches up to them.
I can see that
later in the season.
I can see that, but I just have a really hard time seeing Harbaugh lose his first game, especially against the team that blew out the Chargers 60-14 last year. I think that this is a statement game for Harbaugh, and I think they're going to find a way to win no matter what.
See, I feel like this is like whenever he first got to Michigan and a inferior Michigan State team just beat him all the time and nobody could figure out why until they didn't.
Okay.
And then Panthers week 2. I don't have a whole lot of faith in the Panthers this year. I like the Chargers here.
I think the Panthers are going to be feistier than anyone's saying, but I like the Chargers there too.
I mean, I think they'll be feisty. I think they might be the Lions of 4 years ago, to where you're going to end this season. You're going to look up. They're going to be like 4-13, but they covered 14 games.
Yeah.
I could see that being the Panthers.
All right. So Chargers starting off with 3 straight road games, going to Pittsburgh in week 3.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's a tough game, but I like the Chargers here, actually.
Okay. I'm taking the Steelers in this one. The Steelers have a hard schedule, but they're going to win some games, and this is one of them that I just have them finding.
Well, Chargers have the Cowboys the next week, and I think the Steelers have the Cowboys the next week, and I think they win that game.
Okay. And then so week 4, Chiefs go to the Chargers. What do you see happening there?
I like the Chiefs here.
Okay.
I think they won the first one, and I think they split. I think they split that one. Both went on the road. And then next up we have Chargers Broncos. I like the Chargers here. I mean, until I see something out of this Peyton led Broncos team, Bo Nix led Broncos team. Who else is there?
Do you remember the Bo Nix game?
No, I remember it happening. I couldn't watch it.
That was against Justin Herbert. Yeah, you told this story. That was against Justin Herbert. So this is the rematch of the original Bo Nix game.
Yeah, it is. And I don't expect to have Bo Nix magic in this game. And it's crazy that Justin Herbert's in his 4th year in the league. And this is Bo Nix's rookie year.
Yeah.
And I think that was Justin Herbert's 2nd year in college compared to Bo Nix's first. Yeah, so they were only one year difference. And 4 years later, we're getting a rookie Bo Nix versus a second contract.
It's insane.
Justin Herbert. But then we have Cardinals here. I like the Cardinals here. I was about to say. I sneakily like the Cardinals here.
On Monday Night Football.
Yep.
Cardinals were one of the best teams in the NFL at home against the spread last year. And I think they were actually close to 500 at home. And they got better.
Yep. So then we have the Saints next. I like the Chargers here. I don't really know what the Saints are doing as an organization right now.
Yeah. And then how about the Chargers going to the Browns week 9?
I want to take the Browns here. I don't love this Browns team. I really don't like Deshaun Watson, but I keep forgetting about Nick Chubb. And so let me take the Browns.
That defense is going to give him a chance in every game.
Absolutely. Titans, Chargers. I low-key don't hate the Titans this year as much as I probably should, but I'm going to take the Chargers.
The Titans just did all they could to Band-Aid everything up and be like, we can compete.
You look at their roster and you're like, oh, it's not 2019 anymore.
Yeah.
But if this was 2019, holy shit, they would be good.
How about the Bengals going to the Chargers?
I like the Bengals in this game. I just love Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I was saying, the Chargers secondary. I just don't know if they can hang with the Bengals wide receivers.
Yep. Baltimore. I think this is going to be a super fun game. I mean, not only do you have the brothers, but I mean, they're going to want to play the same game, kind of. We have the new offensive coordinator in Baltimore, so we don't really know how that offense is going to look yet. But I think this is a super fun game, but I'm taking the Ravens here.
Wait, it's the same OC in Baltimore, isn't it?
Was Greg Roman already on last year?
Yeah, it was. I always forget his name. We had this happen last week too. He was Georgia's OC before going to the Ravens last.
Where was Greg Roman last year?
Nowhere.
Oh, okay.
He might have been a consultant somewhere, but he wasn't a coordinator.
Okay. Well, I still like the Ravens here. And then Falcons, Chargers. You like the Falcons in this game.
Yeah, and so the previous game, I like the Chargers because I think Jim is still reeling about losing to John in the Super Bowl, and he's going to find a way.
Probably keeps it up all night. I just think the Ravens are a better team. They got the 2-time on their team. Yeah, I got to go with the Ravens.
And in Week 13, I like the Falcons in Atlanta. I just think.
You think this is a Michael Penix game, or do you think Kirk Cousins plays?
I think this is Kirk Cousins, but I just think them having to travel all the way across to Atlanta after a few home games.
What do you think this is going to be like?
Potential.
You think this is going to be a noon game?
Yeah.
Yeah. Give me the Falcons. Give me Kirk Cousins at noon. Against
Kirk Cousins is not a man to scorn.
Yeah. Then we got the Buccaneers next. I'll take the Chargers in that game. Oh yeah. I like the Chargers against the Chiefs second time. Like I said, I just don't see Harbaugh getting swept by anybody in the division. And then next up, I'll take the Chargers versus the Buccaneers, as will you. I'll take the Chargers versus the Broncos, as will you. And then I kind of like this Patriots team a little bit. I love their coach. I love what they're doing, and I like Drake May. And I think they could start out pretty poor, but I think they could string together a couple of wins. I think they go around 7-10ish on the year, but I think they get 3 or 4 wins in the last 5 weeks. I like the Patriots here. Okay. And then I had the Raiders beating them twice, but I think I'm going to change my mind there. I think I'm going to take the Chargers here.
Yeah.
I originally liked the Raiders there, but I don't think they lose bookends to the Raiders.
I like the Raiders here, but my issue with picking them here is like, I look at their schedule and I cannot find 8 wins. And I just start to wonder if that team loses that many games early in the season, will they really come back around? Like, that's where I end up with the Raiders. I just don't. I'm really struggling with it because their first half of the schedule is so brutal. I'm not sure they'll recover.
Antonio Pierce is like a no-quit guy. Like,
he is, but
no matter what happens,
when the
like
guys quit on him. Like,
I just don't think
they're at 1-6. I don't know.
I just don't think he's the guy that'll lose the locker room. I mean, I think he's like a Dan Quinn. Like, when the Lions were 1-7 that first Dan Quinn year or whatever it was, like they were still like all in every single week.
We got to talk the Raiders in a little bit anyway, so let's save it for that. But you've got the Chargers at 9-8, and I've got them at 10-7.
I think that's about right for them.
Yeah.
Let's go back to their page. Talk about bets that we like for the season.
Yeah. Gotta do a little back end producing here to get back to it. There we go.
All right, so we have over under 8.5. So it looks like we both like the over there, but that's at -150.
Mm-hmm.
So don't love that. Playoffs.
I like them over 9.5 if you can get it.
Yeah. Playoffs. So they're
even.
Their favorite, or it's even money to make the playoffs. You'll add a little bit of juice to say they don't make the playoffs. Winning the division at +350, AFC Championship at +2100, and Super Bowl at +5000. So looking at these, I would say if I don't think I'm going to touch this team.
Yeah.
With a future, but if I were to do one, I'll probably take the division at +350, 3.5 to 1 with a Harbaugh-led team. The Chiefs, like we just talked about it, they won 8 straight, and this isn't really a bet against the Chiefs, but it's like it's football; anything can happen. Yeah, and if I'm if I don't like them to win the AFC Championship, I don't like them to make the Super or go to the win the Super Bowl.
I don't think they're just not ready.
8.5 is such a weird number, and you're not really getting great value there. So I mean, strictly value, I think division championship would be where I'm most leaning here.
I think
But
I agree.
I wouldn't bet it, but just strictly value that would probably be where I went if I were to make a future on this team.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, that's the only one that stands out to me, and even that, like, I wouldn't bet it, but if I had to bet one, that's what I'm betting.
Yeah, I think there's enough potential there to where you can feel good about that. All right, next up we have the Las Vegas Raiders. They drafted a tight end last year in the top 20, and they said, "Why don't we just run that back and get Brock Bowers at 13?" What do you think about
Run
that?
it back. Hey, for what this team is, for what their head coach is, I freaking love it.
Yeah,
this team is going to smash you in the mouth. They want to hurt you. They want to put you in the dirt, and that is a team that needs two awesome tight ends.
Yeah. I mean, I can't hate it. That's for sure. It seems you look at this offense, and I mean, I think there's a lot to like here. I mean, I think Colton Miller's decent.
He's pretty good. He's pretty dang good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the wrong word, but yeah, I like Colton Miller a lot. Then Jackson Powers Johnson, loved him out of Oregon. I think a lot of people did. Get him at 44. I thought that was pretty good.
It'll be interesting to see him playing guard because he did play some guard, but I think his footwork was a bit of a question at guard.
Yeah, I thought
that'll be interesting to see play out.
I thought it was crazy that they drafted him to play guard, but maybe it was just one of those, just like, he's the best player on the board at 44.
Well, honestly, so as I was doing draft prep on him, it was kind of like the question started to creep into my mind of, is someone really going to play this guy at center? Because he can be a really good guard at that size.
Yeah.
And the strength that he has and the athleticism he has. Like he was at like 340 something pounds at the Senior Bowl. He's massive. And centers don't get paid. Guards just got paid a ton. Like you're going to like guard always made some sense for him. I just didn't really say it until after it happened.
Yeah, so you got Brock Bowers here, the wide receiver 3. I like that. I mean, I think he's a catch first tight end. But
yeah, I think they're going to run a lot of 12. And
we have Jacoby Myers, and I mean Devonta Adams is still one of the best wide receivers in the league. And then I mean it's really just about Aiden O'Connell here. I mean I think that's what this team comes down to. You look at this defense. I mean Max Crosby, I think it's top 5 defense player in the league. Absolutely incredible. Tyree Wilson's got to show more than he showed last year, but I mean, I think the potential is still there. I think he showed flashes last year of really being able to be a breakout guy. So, yeah, I mean, and then you look at some of these guys that went and picked up like Cody Whitehair for depth, Harrison Bryant because they needed a tight end, Gardner Minshew, like so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Aiden O'Connell doesn't get the job done, at least. I mean, Gardner Minshew will throw the ball to Devonta Adams 40 times a game.
So
he ain't scared.
No, not at all. This defensive line has pure game-wrecking potential between Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, and Malcolm Kuntz. Kuntz is really underrated. He's a good football player.
And Christian Wilkins was a monster last year.
Yeah, Christian Wilkins is just a monster. And same, Max Crosby is a pirate. He is a Raider. He looks more like his team's mascot than any other player in the NFL.
He looks more like the team's mascot than the team's mascot.
Yeah. But once Antonio Pierce took over, this defense shifted. Like they started doing some really fun stunts, some really fun different alignments on their D line. They had Tyree Wilson playing nose tackle on passing downs. And I thought Tyree Wilson was a 3-tech when he came in the league. I still think he is. And they started getting him there, and he started getting some more pressure. Still not great against the run. But this D line has a chance to be something really special, especially once you factor in the linebackers. Divine Diablo is one of the more interesting players of the league, in my opinion, when I watch him, this guy is so long and so rangy and freaky athletically. Like, he's not your standard linebacker who's going to stand in the box and shed and make tackles. But the way they use him is so interesting.
You liked Eichenberg out of the draft too, didn't you?
What was that?
You liked Eichenberg coming out of the draft too, didn't you?
Eichenberg?
The linebacker they took.
Oh, yeah, Tommy Eichenberg. He's more your old school stack and shed linebacker. Yeah. He's fun.
He's Antonio Pierce.
No, he is. But I think this front seven is going to be fun.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about this team. It's really just the quarterback position. And, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised but I wouldn't be surprised if we see an Ed O'Connell here or a Gardner Minshew here. So it'll be interesting to say the least. I mean, I felt like for sure this was a team that was like primed to go get a Justin Fields. Like, it's crazy.
But then they hired the second they hired Luke Getsy, I knew it wasn't happening though.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, Luke Getsy already lost one job because Justin Fields can't run his offense. Why would he risk another?
True.
And so one thing that's really interesting with this team, I was thinking through this the other day. The last 2 years, the Bears are one of the best teams in the NFL on scripted drives. So the first 2-3 drives of the game, the Bears were really good under Luke Getsy. Luke Getsy was really good at finding those weaknesses and getting early points on the board. If you can get this D line a lead, they can eat. And the rest of the game, it might not even matter.
And as far as somebody who can run a system, I mean, I think that is what Ed O'Connell is. I think he's got some
shape today. I was surprised.
Yeah, I think he's got a little bit of Kirk Cousins in him, where I think he's going to be limited by athletic ability, but I think the head is there for him. I think he can make all the throws, and I think if he can just find some sort of consistency with a team, I think he can maybe not put up the numbers Kirk Cousins puts up, but be in that Baker Mayfield tier that we talked about last week.
Yeah, I mean, man, I'm still shocked by these defensive stats. This team, that D line just ate for them last year, and their secondary lost Amik Robertson. I wish they brought him back because I like him a lot.
Yeah.
And the corners are really the question I have for them. Looking at the quarterbacks here, I mean,
but you look at the division. You look at the division, and it's is there really the Chiefs have a ton of speed and Patrick Mahomes, but the division as a whole, are you really looking
that's a good point
that you're terrified about any of these receivers?
That's a good point. You're not terrified of them, and you got strong safety play behind them. Let me get rid of there. You have some really strong safety play between Trevon Moehrig and Marcus Epps.
I like Moehrig a lot,
and I like Nate Hobbs a lot at corner. It's just outside of that, I have questions. Jack Jones showed some nice stuff, but he hasn't played a lot. Ja'Cory Bennett's young. Maybe there's something more there, but he didn't do a lot with his snaps that he did get last year. And they drafted DeCamari and Richardson in the 4th round. I think there's some upside there. Super long football player who can.
I like to have him coming out
find the football. Yeah.
But you want to go back? You want to go back to the page and talk about futures for this team?
Yeah. Sure. Let me talk O-line for a second, because this is a really thin O-line, but they're good if they're healthy. I think the success of this team is going to hinge on whether this O-line stays healthy, because the second
Cody Whitehair was Whitehair, right?
Yeah, the second you put him in the lineup, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And he's your 6th offensive lineman here. DJ Glaze, a rookie.
I'll take for a depth piece, that's not bad.
Be playing. Whitehair's washed. He's done.
You think?
He's not there anymore. I don't say that lightly. There were times where he was just getting bullied last year.
If he has to play, it's only Chris Jones.
Yeah, exactly. So I think DJ Glaze is in there before Cody Whitehair is. Maybe there's something more there, but the one thing that really scares me here outside of quarterback is the depth of that offensive line room. But man, outside of that, this roster is surprising.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that was my biggest takeaway when I started going through these rosters. I'm like, man, there's a lot to like here. And then
guess what Zamir White, Zeus's 40 was? I looked this up today.
out of Georgia. I felt like he was super fast in college, but I don't feel like we see it that kind of burst. But
he hasn't played much.
4.39,
4.4. That
Yeah,
is that is really fast for a running back. Like this.
No,
dude,
he was crazy electric in Georgia. I felt like.
I think he's going to be a big, like a surprising player this year if their O-line stays healthy, because they're going to open up some gap runs. That
I really like Dylan Laub too.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of potential out for this.
I don't have any hope in Mattinson at all. I mean,
no. I mean,
but I think it's going to be
Laub is going to get more of a chance than Madison.
Yeah,
does.
I agree. Amir Abdullah's still there?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
all of his 89 yards last year.
Nebraska legend.
And then they got your boy Michael Gallup.
Oh, technically. But okay, so I look at this. I look at these futures, and immediately 6.5 wins. Like even at minus 140, I'm hammering that. I think this team gets every bit of 7 wins. I just took a win away from them actually last time, so I think I'm going to have them at 6 wins. But
their schedule is freaking brutal.
Yeah, it is. But looking at this, I mean, we're about to go through their schedule, and I'm going to put them at 6 wins. But I love this over 6.5. I don't hate playoffs at plus 310. I think 9-8 makes the playoffs in the AFC this year. I think it's going to be a brutal AFC. I wouldn't be surprised if a 9-8, 8-9 gets you in, and I think they can get there. So at plus 310, I don't hate playoffs. I wouldn't touch them on the division, AFC Championship or Super Bowl, but I think as far as value goes, playoffs and the over on win total, I love both of those for this team.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Like if I'm gonna bet anything, it's probably playoffs, just because the over is like it's like what am I doing?
So heavily
minus 144, but like
yeah,
it minus 144 over on 6.5 wins is probably your best chance to hit.
Yeah. Man, are we not? Are we sleeping on the Raiders?
They are strong in my consideration. Their schedule is the reason why
schedule and division. It's hard.
Doing it. It's a brutal
schedule and division. Yeah, I agree. If they do an NFL realignment, I might not be sleeping on the Raiders, but as long as they're in a division with the Chiefs, got to sleep on them.
It's close, man. Like I just think Antonio Pierce is gonna have that like Mike Vrabel effect of like I just am football.
Yeah, they should bring Vrabel in.
Yeah, they should. All right. Go ahead.
Okay, starting out, I have the Raiders winning week 1. I think they start hot. You have the Chargers. We just talked about that. Mm-hmm. They got Ravens week 2. We both got the Ravens here. I'll change this right here. I like the Panthers originally, but I think I'm going to give this to the Raiders. Which I don't think the Panthers get swept by this division, so I think the Broncos can take a loss to the Panthers there. Then we both have Raiders over Browns. Then the first game against the Broncos, you have the Broncos, I have the Raiders.
Yeah, I just think the Broncos are gonna win some games in Denver early, and they're gonna be against teams who have quarterback questions.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I get that for sure. The next up we have Steelers, Raiders. I like the Steelers here. I think that's going to be a Justin Fields-led Steelers team by this point in the season. I like Justin Fields a lot. Give me the Steelers.
And I'm taking the Raiders there because I just think they're going to be a tough out at home, and they're going to be like scraping for wins because at this point I have them at 2-4, 2-3. So that them winning this gets them back to 3-3. I think they're just like barely hanging on.
Yeah, I really wanted to take the Raiders here
over the Rams.
Yeah, I might change it by the time we get to the NFC West preview, but for now I'm leaving it the Rams.
My thing is like I'm looking at this, and the teams that I have the Raiders beating all have quarterback issues.
Yeah.
Teams are not going to be able to score against them if they don't have a good quarterback. But I think Matt Stafford is going to poke holes in their secondary.
I think the Rams at home benefit a lot from just not a whole lot of teams being on that side of the country.
Yeah.
And long travel. The Raiders, that's a 20-minute flight?
Yeah. That's true.
So, but And that D line for the Raiders. I mean, I think that offensive line is still pretty weak there. Don't really know what Cooper Kupp's going to be this year. So I mean, I think they match up pretty well. And then you also look at Matt Stafford, who.
So you're taking the Raiders here?
I think. Let's keep it at the Rams for now. I'll talk about it more. But that Stafford was supposed to have a back injury last year that just seemed to not affect him. And I think something like that has got to have it linger at some point or show up at some point. So
yeah.
We'll see. I might switch that, but I'm leaving it Rams for now. Next up, we both have the Chiefs. Next up after that, we both have the Bengals. After that, I would have taken the Raiders here if it was in.
Yeah, in
Las Vegas.
Me too.
But do we have a date here?
Week 11. I don't have the date on it, so that would be
week 11 is probably mid-November.
Yeah,
early November.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's going to be 85 degrees probably in Miami.
Yeah.
So yeah, we both have Dolphins
Dolphin home field advantage.
Yep. And then next up, I actually have the Broncos winning in Las Vegas. You had the Broncos winning in Denver, but then you have the Raiders at home that week. We both got the Chiefs Black Friday game. And then Buccaneers, I have Raiders, you have Bucks.
I just think the Raiders are going to be really tough out at home going across the country to Tampa. I think it's going to be tough.
Yeah. Yeah. So they go to Miami, home to Kansas City is a pretty far flight for them too.
Mm-hmm.
And then
this is a brutal stretch.
That's a lot of travel there.
Brutal stretch for them.
But then after that we have Falcons at home. We both are taking the Raiders there, and then luckily they don't have to go to Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But they got the Jaguars at home. I'm taking the Jaguars here. You got the Raiders. I think Trevor Lawrence slides it up this year. I like him a lot.
I just needed to get the Raiders another win or two. Like that's why I went with the Raiders here, because I was like, I think Trevor Lawrence will pull it out, but like the Raiders, I don't have enough wins for them here.
Yeah. And then we both got the Raiders versus the Saints, and then we both have the Chargers week 18. And I think that takes me to 6-11 for them.
7-10. We both got them at 7-10.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's about right. But I mean, I think perfect scenario they can be 9-8. I think worst case scenario they're 5-12.
Yeah, I think that sounds fair.
I think that's about where this team is.
On to the Denver Broncos. Broncos country.
Broncos country. Yeah, I don't know if we're riding. So who are their quarterbacks here? We have Bo Nix. We have who else that's on? Darnold? No, Darnold's in Minnesota.
Oh, I don't even know who their backup is. I don't think I put it on here.
No, they.
Oh,
you don't even have them in the additions. They went and got somebody. Oh, Tarleton. He came from Stephenville. He went to Baylor. Jarrett Stidham.
Yeah. And they got Zach Wilson.
Zach Wilson was one I was thinking of, but I knew Jarrett Stidham was there too. So I mean, we're not even sure Bo Nix is going to start here.
I'm pretty sure he's gonna. It might just be a gut feeling, but
yeah. I mean,
Sean Payton went and got his guy.
Yeah. Where's Jerry Jeudy now?
Cleveland.
Yeah, I was about to say Cleveland, but that didn't sound right.
Just hanging out with Drew Carey.
And Amari Cooper, both Alabama legends. Yeah, so I mean, you look at this team. I mean, I don't hate their offensive line really.
No, I just have a question at center, and like I have Wattenberg listed here. It might be Sam Mustipher, which I don't really like either. If I'm them, I'm hoping that Alex Forsythe can become your center, because I really liked Forsythe in the draft. He fell for some reason. It must have been injury, because I can't figure out why it was.
Yeah.
Like
Where was he from?
Oregon. He shut down Georgia. Like Oregon got destroyed in this game, but he was like the one Oregon player who just had an incredible game against like Jalen Carter, and he looked.
That was awesome. The guy. That was the guy afterwards. They said like Bo Nix was like pounding the table for, or no? Was he a rookie?
No, Forsythe's the second year guy.
There was somebody in the draft. They're like, oh yeah, he just talked so highly. Maybe is he a Oregon guy, or did he play with Bo Nix at Auburn?
Oregon wide receiver.
Oh, okay, yeah. Troy Franklin. But I knew that.
I didn't even think about that. Forsythe was Nix's center at Oregon last year. Like, I think Forsythe is going to be starting at center.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. But going through the rest of this roster, I mean, I don't hate Courtland Sutton. He's shown flashes, but don't really love it either. Josh Reynolds, Marvin Mims?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to hope Troy Franklin can play in this offense. I do love Estime coming in out of Notre Dame at running back.
Get some here.
You know, I've been a big Pookie Williams fan, but I think injuries have hurt him a lot, and I
don't think he's the same guy.
No, I don't think he's the same guy either. But I mean, I don't know, man. I look at this team. I don't have a lot of hope. I mean, Patrick Surtain is top 5 corner in the league, and he's not 5, and he's not 4, and he's probably not 3.
Yeah, no, I mean he's up there for sure. And like I agree. I look at this team and I'm like, with the right quarterback, I could actually feel pretty good about this offense. But I just don't know if Bo Nix is going to be that guy. And at that point, I'm not sure. Like Sutton is probably in the back 9 of his career at this point. I think he's done some really nice stuff without any good quarterback play. But I'm not sure that you can expect him to keep
year 7
and staying healthy. Yeah, something like that. And Josh Reynolds, I think, is a guy. He's fine. He's a good role player. He's a good wide receiver 3. I don't think he's a strong.
How long has Josh Reynolds been in the league?
Forever, I feel like. I feel like he entered the league at like 20 or something.
I feel like I've been hearing about Josh Reynolds since I was like 12 years old.
Since McVay took over with the Rams. I think that's where he got started out.
Yeah. But I mean,
Mims he went real.
Josh Reynolds went to he came from Detroit, right?
Yeah, but he was with the Rams before Detroit.
Yeah. I was just trying to get my timeline together, but yeah.
But even more than like the offense, I question the defense. Like, I'm not sure what you really have here that you feel that strong about outside of Surtain and Zach Allen. Like John Franklin Myers is a good football player. But I don't think he's making anyone better.
Where's Justin Simmons going to end up? I think he's still a free agent.
No idea.
Did he play good last year?
I think he played pretty well last year. Still,
you think he's going to just wait till he's just not wanting to go to training camp?
He doesn't want to do OTAs, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, we'll have you in Dallas if you're listening, Justin Simmons.
But so I just have question marks all over this roster. Like I like the offensive line. Quinn Miners is my dude.
We love Quinn Miners. Yeah,
I still I was watching some of him a few weeks ago. It was just like,
was he North Dakota State?
This dude, no, not he was a D3 school, like 3 Rivers
South Dakota
or something. State. No, he was D3.
South Dakota State's D3, I think.
No, it's D2.
He was. I want to say one of the Dakotas. But I remember like backwoods
tiny school, like he showed up at the Senior Bowl, no one knew who he was, type thing. Wisconsin Whitewater,
yeah. I remember they were showing him like backwoods training, like chopping trees down and like using them for like the clean and jerk and like
No, he's awesome. Like he's the perfect guard, like the way he plays. It's
I bet he loves Denver. I bet he loves I'm assuming he doesn't live in Denver. He probably lives like 30 miles outside of Denver, but I'm sure he loves that.
Probably.
Well, yeah, what a great place to go, because like a lot of those, like there's like a lot of those places on the East Coast that he could have ended up like there's not really a suburb to like go like out in the woods for. So
I will say I heard a theory about Denver last week that was like last year Sean Payton did not enjoy going to work. He did not enjoy every day because it wasn't his quarterback. It couldn't be his offense. And this year, it's his guy. It's his offense, and he's much more invested in it, which I think could be an interesting aspect.
Sounds like a lousy excuse.
I think so too. But I think it could be interesting if he's more engaged than he was last year. Ultimately, I think it's hard for me to buy like the guy wasn't engaged when he's an NFL head coach, but
in his first year, and he took the job.
Yeah,
like get the fuck out of here.
But
I can't stand the love that this guy gets. Like I've always been a Sean Payton guy, but like people act like this is like a top 5 coach of all time, and he's fine. He's better than average. He had a Hall of Fame quarterback for the majority of his career and got 1 Super Bowl out of it. Like. Let's pump the brakes here.
Hey, man, you were pretty spot on about it last year. Him and Mike McCarthy are pretty much the same career arc.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he is Mark McCarthy. Mark McCarthy is him. And Matt McCarthy gets hate because he's on the Cowboys. But Sean Payton would get that same hate if he was on the Cowboys. And I don't know how people would look at Matt McCarthy if he went elsewhere. So it's hard to be like.
Packers. I mean, people hate the Packers. People hate the Cowboys. Like they kind of are both probably 2 of the most hated franchises.
Yeah, and he brought the Saints out of just muck and.
Yeah, well, the Saints were the no face fans, like, and they were the embarrassing team until Sean Payton got there.
True, but yeah, as far as I just feel like the media and everything acts like Sean Payton is just like this god amongst men, and. He's a fine coach. Like I would take him over a lot of people, but well, I mean, for it to be coming out of camp or coming out of the office that he wasn't invested because it wasn't his offense, then like they traded draft capital to get you out of retirement, and you accepted the job, and you're gonna say that after the fact, like that's a lousy excuse. That's just bullshit that it even got reported that was. Even a possibility.
Yeah.
Not saying that it was. Not saying that's what happened, but just the fact that it was reported.
It was put out in the
the
Twitterverse.
Wild.
But so let's look at these weapons here. I mean, the wide receiver room leaves me wanting a lot. There's potential there. I mean, there's potential.
You don't love Lil Jordan Humphrey?
I mean, Sean Payton just has his guys, man. He got Lil Jordan Humphrey. He went and got Adam Troutman. He went and got all these guys from the Saints who like never really worked out, but they're his guys. Like, and I don't know. Like, it's fine. None of them are starters, so it's fine.
How is nobody from the Saints? How does nobody from the Saints organization head up Sean Payton and be like, "Hey, you want Taysom Hill? We would love to get rid of this contract."
They have to have tried. I mean, Greg Dulcich will be back this year. He only played 2 games last year, and he has some nice upside at tight end. So they got that going for him with Troy Franklin and Josh Reynolds and Cortland Sutton. I think Marvin Mims, I liked him a lot last year. I think that there's a chance that there's something more there than what we've seen so far. Yeah. But again, we're talking about a lot of ifs and maybes, not a lot of sure things here.
Yeah, I don't love this team moving forward. You want to go ahead and talk about futures for this team? We're almost 2 hours in.
Yeah, let's.
Or is there anything else you want to talk about?
Let's just browse through the rest of this catalog here. Edge rusher, I feel like they're really missing some pieces. Drew Sanders just tore his Achilles.
What do you think about Jonathan Cooper?
I know very little about Jonathan Cooper, if I'm being honest, so I don't feel like I can sit here and say a whole lot. His stats are pretty nice. His stats are pretty nice. Same with Nick Benito.
Yeah, I want to say I like him, but I can't. Such a cookie cutter name that I'm like, am I thinking about the right person?
Yeah,
but I think I like him.
I might be selling their edge room short a little here because between Cooper, Benito, and Browning, I think they do have something from a pass rush perspective. And Zach Allen, combine that with Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, this D line might have more juice than I'm giving them credit for.
I think what's hurting this team the most is that you have an ascending division. You have question marks at quarterback. You don't really have future capital. I'm assuming there's going to be a move for Patrick Surtain. Like, they have to go get draft capital, I feel like. And when you have the best corner in the league, it's like, are they going to pay him the best corner in the league money, or would it be better to get the draft capital that somebody would be willing to give up for the best corner in the league?
Yeah.
Like,
and I'm not going to sit here and say that Pat Surtain isn't good because he's freaking awesome, but his stats are surprisingly not as good as I expected them to be.
Yeah, well,
and stats, cornerback can be weird with stats always,
especially on a team like that, to where
it's so hard to judge sometimes, like who a bust was on when you don't know the defensive call, and sometimes it just ends up on the corner when it was probably the safety. And that's what I'm assuming is happening here with his numbers. But I was expecting more from the numbers, which is numbers are flawed. They're not tape. But when you're trying to do 32 teams, you need to rely on the numbers sometimes.
You're telling me you're not watching film on all 53-man rosters for all 32 teams?
I'll be damned if I'm not trying. I mean, I've watched so many obscure games in preparation for this year that, like, I have a folder of Aiden O'Connell throws on my computer. If that helps. Like, I am full sicko mode this year, but that doesn't mean that I got to every star and every team either. That means I got to basically I go after the biggest question marks. I try to watch the question marks.
Yeah. So looking at these futures here, we have over under at 5.5. Under is plus 120. Over is plus or minus 150. We have plus 590 for the playoffs, minus 1,000 to miss the playoffs, plus 2,000 to win the division, plus 7,000 to win the AFC Championship, and plus 15,000 to win the Super Bowl. Honestly, I'm looking at this team. I might take this under 5.5 at plus 120. This schedule is crazy tough. I mean, we've already talked about the division, how tough this division is going to be this year. And a rookie, Bo Nix, that I don't feel like Bo Nix ever elevated any team he was on in college. He was fine, college quarterback. One throw.
Oh, it was incredible.
The legend of Bo Nix. That throw. I mean, that's like the Michael Crabtree light version. Like, Michael Crabtree had already won 2 Blitnikoffs and made that play against Texas, but that was the light version of that.
Like, you know what Bo Nix's Blitnikoffs were? It was his dad.
Naming Bo Nix and sending him to Auburn.
His dad was an Auburn legend.
Yeah, but they also named him Bo Nix, and he went to Auburn. Like, is there a better Auburn quarterback name than Bo Nix?
No, there's not. Because it all fed into the legend, and now Sean Payton's got his guy. I'm with you on the under. 5th quarterback taken in the first round, starting on a team that has questions at weapons, questions at center, and questionable defense. He's going to need to score a lot of points, I think, to be able to really overcome this over-under. So I think the under is the safest play here.
Yeah, no, and at plus 120, I mean, you're getting a little bit better than even money. So, yeah, I like that a lot.
And we are officially haters, according to Denver fans, I'm sure.
Oh, man.
It's a hard life being a hater.
At least there's more than one of them.
Yeah.
We found the Charger fan. He does not like me.
No, he does not.
All right,
he will not be invited to his birthday party.
Hopefully he invites the rest of the fan. First up here, we have them opening up at Seattle. I think Seattle's going to be a tough team this year. I'll take this as a loss.
That D-line is stacked in Seattle.
Yeah. And I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba in his second year. I'm probably taking all the overs on JSN this year. I love that guy this year. Crowded wide receiver room, but we'll get to that later. Next up, we have the Steelers here. I mean, you got the Broncos here. I like the Steelers team.
I can't see a world where Russell Wilson goes to Denver and wins. I just really struggle to see that.
I'm the opposite. I think Russell Wilson played good down the stretch last year. I think he got a raw deal there after signing a massive contract. Probably feels very disrespected that he's getting paid his entire salary basically from Denver still, while being paid $1.63 by the Steelers. Give me the Steelers. Give me that D-line. Give me a Russell Wilson. They don't have Deontay Johnson anymore, but I don't care. Give me the Steelers in that game.
I think that game is the first time where we see the cracks of Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson not working.
That early, huh?
Yeah. Hey, you think Fields is in by week 4, so
I think that's going to be because the Cowboys put on a clinic in the first half.
Okay.
And then lose the game.
All right, so Broncos
if
go
that
to
happens,
Tampa.
If that happens, nobody in the country has a better read on the Cowboys than this guy right here.
You're right.
All right, Tampa. I got to give this to Tampa. Going to Tampa. Baker revenge season, baby.
Ooh, Baker revenge season. All right. Broncos, Jets in New York at the Meadowlands where everyone gets hurt.
Yeah.
Nathaniel Hackett revenge game.
Number 2. Yeah, I take the Jets here. No, even if Aaron Rodgers for some reason isn't playing, I like the Jets here.
If that was in Denver, I'd actually take Sean Payton, but it's not.
Next up, I have the Raiders at Denver beating the Broncos. After that, we have Chargers going to Denver, and we both have them winning.
The Chargers.
Bo next is Auburn debut was versus Justin Herbert. Next up, we have Saints Broncos. You don't even have the Sean Payton nugget here.
Let me get that in there. Sean Payton
nugget.
Revenge?
Question mark?
Nugget?
The nugget. Yeah, is it a revenge game? That because he kind of
that's why I have the question mark.
Yeah. I like.
If anything, I think this is a Saints revenge game.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. If anything, these players are going to be like, "Oh, we weren't good enough for you. Like you just quit." Like, I like Saints here.
You know, I've gone back and forth on this one.
Thursday night football.
I'm with you. I've literally changed this one like 5 times.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going Saints. I think you're right because it's a Saints revenge game. I didn't think about it from that aspect.
Yeah,
not a Sean Payton revenge game.
That crowd is gonna be nasty. Thursday night football.
Yeah,
love that. Carolina here. We got to give the Carolina. Panthers are gonna win some games. I think they can win this game at Denver.
Again, I just went with the Denver home field advantage cross country. Yeah. Like I went with Broncos there.
Yeah, we got Denver at Baltimore here. I'm taking Baltimore in this game.
Oh yeah,
I'm
not riding with the Broncos.
We both have the Chiefs. Then next up, I'll take Denver winning this home game versus the Falcons. It's gonna be probably a noon game or a 3:25 game, but I think that's the game that it kind of gets buried. And then you look up at the end of the day and you're like, oh, Broncos beat the Falcons. And the Falcons are probably going to be like 6-3 going into that game or something. And probably be like plus 350 favorite or like Broncos are going to be like plus 350 underdogs, plus 400 underdogs to go out there and win it. So next up, Broncos, Raiders. I have Broncos here. You have the Raiders.
Yeah. This is basically, I'm just saying 2 teams without a QB. They're splitting home away.
We have Broncos at home Monday Night Football versus the Browns. What a terrible game. I'll take the Browns here. This screams Nick Chubb game.
It might. I'm going Broncos just because I see quarterback issues. Home team against another team with quarterback issues. I'm going to tend to take the home team.
Yeah. Next up, we have the Colts. I will take the Colts here at Denver. I don't think according to this, Broncos aren't going to win a home game for me, but and then we have Chargers in LA. We both have the Chargers here. Ending the season at Cincinnati. I'm going to take the Bengals.
And they got one more game against the Chiefs.
You know, I kind of want to give this to the Broncos last game of the season. I think
so. You're going to put the Chiefs down to 9?
No.
Okay.
In real time, whenever we get to this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos win this game.
Yeah.
Because hopefully the Chiefs aren't going to have much to play for.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, I'll leave it. I'll leave it for the Chiefs here, but I wouldn't be surprised at all.
All right, so here are our. You got the Broncos at 2-15. I've got them at 4-13.
I give them some more wins than that. Let's go back. Let me give them a couple more wins. I'll give them one more. Let me give them not the Seahawks, not the Steelers, not the Bucks, not the Jets.
It was a hell of a 2-game win streak. Well,
Chargers, Panthers, Ravens, Chiefs. Let's give them the Browns. Let's give them the Browns game. I'm
all right. But a 3-game win streak. Oh, we're riding now.
Broncos country, baby. Yeah. I mean, I just went through that again. I'm like, I don't want to give them. I don't want to give up.
So we both got the Chiefs winning the division. Both got the Chargers coming in second, followed by the Raiders in third. Both having them at 7-10, and the Broncos leading up the end of the pack at 3.
What do you have the Broncos wins. 4? Okay, we're basically Okay. Yeah, and I think that under is good value there. And I think Sean Payton can add this team to a 500 team in a couple of years. But first season Bo Nix, I don't think he's anywhere near good enough to elevate this team.
All right, so are we gonna? How about this? How about we highlight any team that we consider a potential not sleeping on? Do we want to do Raiders?
We can go through them again. Oh yeah, in this division, because I mean, Chargers have the hype.
All right, so we are potentially not sleeping on the Raiders.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I do too. I want to like them more. Their schedule's just so freaking hard.
Yeah, that AFC West is going to be a brutal division this year. But all right, I think that's it for us tonight. Unless you got anything else?
Nope. I think 2 hours is about where each of these episodes is probably going to be. So I think we hit the nail on the head here.
All righty. Well, that'll be it for us tonight. Thank you all so much. If you stuck around for the whole thing, we will be live next week next week I will be in Austin. Unless you want to do Thursday.
I'm cool with Thursday.
Okay. We'll see you next Thursday. We'll be doing AFC North?
Sounds good to me.
I love the AFC North. I'm so excited for that division. All right. AFC North next week. Let us know who you think's going to win the AFC North next week. Let us know who's going to win the AFC West. And we will see y'all next week.
Adios.
You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it.